Hey students, this is lesson 634, absolute value. We're going to learn how to find the absolute value of a number. First thing we have to know is that the absolute value of a number is defined as its distance from zero on a number line. So the absolute value of a number is always non-negative, so it's never negative, and that's because a distance is always a positive number. Can't be talking about a negative distance. So here's an example. The absolute value of -4 is 4 because -4 is 4 units from 0. Also, the absolute value of 4 is 4 because 4 is 4 units from 0 this way. So it doesn't matter whether you go to the right or to the left, you consider that a positive distance. So if I were to write this equation, straight brackets mean absolute value. This is saying the absolute value of what number is equal 4. And so basically what I'm saying is what numbers are 4 units from 0? And of course the answer is 4 and -4. Okay, so an absolute value equation like this has two answers. All right, so let's do some problems like with that. Here's an example. What are the solutions of the absolute value of x plus 2 equals 9? Check and graph the solutions. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is subtract 2 from both sides. Then we end up with the absolute value of x equals 7. And right when we get that, we're saying to ourselves, what numbers are 7 units from 0? And there's 2 of them. There's positive 7 and -7 are both 7 units from 0. And this is how you graph it. Just put a dot where those are on the number line. So go ahead and try that. Let's make a number line here. I'll actually make a little bit better number line. All right, so to solve this, the first thing we want to do is we want to isolate this absolute value, which means I got to get rid of anything that's not in the absolute value. So we're going to add 5 to both sides there, and then we get the absolute value of n is equal to -2 plus 5 is 3. And now at this point, we're just going to say to ourselves, what numbers are 3 units from 0? And there's 2 of them. There's one over here, -3, and there's one over here at 3. This one is 3 units to the right. This one is 3 units to the left. So we're going to say n equals 3 or n equals -3. All right. In some equations, you're going to have an expression inside like this. And that means that that expression can either be to the left of 0 or to the right of 0, this many units. So when you solve, you have to solve both parts of an equation like that. So here's an example. It says, starting from 100 feet away, your friend skates towards you and then passes you. She skates at a constant speed of 20 feet per second. Her distance is given by this equation. At what time is she 40 feet from you? So there's 2 times when she's going to be 40 feet from you. When she's 40 feet before you and after 40 feet. So you have positive and negative. Solving both of those using the properties of inequality, you get at 3 seconds and at 7 seconds. 3 seconds she'll be 40 feet before she gets to you, and at 7 seconds she'll be 40 feet after. So to solve an equation like this, what we have to think about is, on a number line, we can either be 8 units this way, which would be positive 8, or 8 units this way, which would be negative 8. So this expression, 3x minus 1, we can solve it for when x is -8, and we can solve it for when x is positive 8. So we're going to write down 2 expressions. 3x minus 1 equals 8, or 3x minus 1 equals -8. And then we're just going to solve the normal ways, add 1 to both sides, and we get 3x equals 9, divide both sides by 3, and we get x equals 3. Add 1 here, and we get 3x equals negative 7. Divide by 3, and we get x equals negative 2 1/3. All right, so there's two answers to an absolute expression like this. And sometimes some absolute values don't have solutions, and that happens when you're trying to take the absolute value of a number and it's a negative value. So here's an example of that. If we were to add 5 here to both sides so that we find out what expression in our absolute value has to equal, negative 7 plus 5 is negative 2. Well, right there, if you try to find some number that has an absolute value equal to a negative number, that can't happen because these brackets, the absolute value, turns any number into its positive number, so it'll never be negative. So at that point, you would just say there's no solution because you can't have the absolute value of the number be a negative number. All right? Let's just do a couple problems. I'm going to do, and you can try and see if you can get the answer first, and you can check back and see my work. We're going to do 1 and 3. So you can go ahead and try them if you want. And we'll also do number, let's see, 1 and 3. I guess we'll do those two. So go ahead and see if you can figure out what m is in number 1 and what k is in number 3. And you can check back for the solution. All right. There's your solution. And I just want to look at one other problem. Remember I said that some absolute value equations have no solution. And that's when you're trying to take the absolute value of a number and you end up with, you're trying to take the absolute value of the number and trying to get it to be a negative number. Like you might think this one right here, number 16, is that case because we're trying to make it equal negative 7. But the first thing you always want to do when you're solving one of these is isolate the absolute value part. And you do that by getting rid of anything that's not in the absolute value. So we would add 8 to both sides. Then we get this equals 1. And now it's a positive number. So we can find a number divided by 7 that equals 1 when you take the absolute value. And you're probably thinking, well, I know what that is. It's 7, right? 7 is one of the solutions. And remember, that's the positive one. That's when this equals 1. But remember that there's also an absolute value to the left of 0. That's 1 unit away. So you also have to solve it for negative 1. And this one, when you multiply by 7, you get 7. And for the second one, when you multiply both sides by 7, you get x equals negative 7. So there's 2 answers there. All right. An example of an absolute value equation that has no solution would be something like this. Let's make it plus 7 equals negative 15. Now, if you isolate this absolute value, you would subtract 7. And when you do that, you're trying to take the absolute value of something and make it equal negative 22. Well, that would have no solution because no matter what number you have in there, when you do the absolute value of it, it's going to be positive. So it can't be negative 22. All right, that's it for the lesson. Go ahead and try a couple problems if you want. We'll talk about this more in class.